War Pugs. So today we're going to be checking out something from Vox in the Void, and we already know a couple things right offhand. One, it's going to be good because it's Vox, and two, it's going to be good because it's written by Todd Townsend, and Todd Townsend writes Night Lords excessively well. Okay, so with that being said, this was requested by Talon Master Coins, and this was requested quite a while ago. I'm glad to be finally getting to it. All you Night Lords fans out there, I know one in particular is going to be thrilled about this. All of Vox and the Void's links are going to be in the description down below. Be sure to check him out. He's in a lot of stuff right now. He's guest spotting in a lot of videos. I know that Warrior Tier works with him on a regular basis. Speaking of which, I can't wait for the next thing from Warrior Tier to come out. Until then, War Pugs, like and subscribe if you haven't already. Leave a comment down below. Let's get started. Here we go.
The name of Azal Thalac had grown until it had become a byword for terror across the breadth and width of the Eastern Fringe. He was the captain of the Night Lords' 47th Company, and he had lingered too long. From across the stellar wastes, the Primarch had summoned him, seeking to gather his scattered sons to his side once more. Yet still he had lingered in the Delphana system for 3 weeks. 3 indulgent, blood-filled weeks that had seen another cut made in the fraying fabric of the false Emperor's fraudulent Imperium. The isolated backwater system proving too bountiful a prize for him to abandon so readily. Yet, those 3 weeks had come at a cost. Perhaps, had he heeded Kurz's command and recalled his legionaries the moment the astropathic communique had been received and deciphered, the fickle tides of the Immaterium would have borne him swiftly back to the Carrion world in time for him to attend his father's audience. Perhaps. Or perhaps not. The vagaries of warp travel rendered such speculations pointless, yet the possibility still preyed upon the Night Lord's mind, festering like an infected wound that refused to heal. And I have no one to blame. No one save myself, Thalac thought as he stood on the shadowed command deck of the Abyssal Dirge, his massive battle barge. Beside him, ship mistress Lesritha all but sweated blood as she issued a constant stream of course corrections to her overworked bridge crew. Each new order punctuated by a scathing curse in a different Nostroman dialect as the Dirge and her escort frigates jockeyed for a suitable position at high anchor above the desolate orb of Zagwulsa. The murderous commanders of the 8th Legion had all arrived before him like crows drawn to a carcass. Sho Sahal, Vandrid Anrathi, Kor Mas, Clandra Quickblade, and Naraka the Bloodless, to name but a few. Even the young upstart Captain Krieg Achaebus had reached the Primarch's side ahead of him. The 47th was not merely late in returning. The 47th was the last company to return.
Hooray.
The Lord Kurz was going to be displeased. Thalac's gauntleted hands clenched unconsciously at the thought, betraying his nascent unease. It had only been after the Dirge's turbulent translation back into real space that he had learned the Legion had been fully mustered in system not for days, nor weeks, but for months.
Oh.
His brother's midnight blue and bronze warships thronged the bridge's oculus screens in their hundreds, each one a void-faring colossus, capable of laying waste to entire worlds. In the last 3 minutes alone, Thalac had personally responded to over a score of hails and challenges, some from brother legionaries, others from harried human shipmasters who had barely bothered to address him in a manner befitting an Astartes of his exalted rank.
Yeah, I would not ever want to be a human serving alongside the Night Lords. Ever. Under any circumstance. Don't let the Night Lord Omnibus fool you. It would be the last thing I wanted to do.
Something was amiss. On any other occasion, such a colossal display of tardiness from a commander of Thalac's standing would have drawn the notice of his rival captains as surely as the scent of fresh blood draws the attention of prowling predators. to a wounded prey beast. His peers would have wasted no time in subtly mocking his pathetic straggling response to the Primarch's summons, reveling shamelessly in his misfortune. Yet the voices of the legionaries who hailed him seemed dispirited and despondent even over the Vox, as if all vitality and sense of purpose had been bled from their hearts. Their once bitter resolve now supplemented by a bleak resignation. They cared nothing for his late arrival, and he found their lack of interest both vexing and concerning.
Lord Captain.
Forcing his fists to unclench, Thalac turned to regard his shipmistress with eyes as black and as pitiless as the airless void surrounding them. Lesraitha sat ramrod straight in the Dirge's command throne, exhaustion plain upon her pale face, though her Legion uniform remained immaculate as always, despite being stripped of all Imperial insignia. The ceaseless demands and pressures of her position had prematurely greyed her dark hair, and a faint tremor was detectable in her hand as she proffered the Legionary a data slate containing the battle barge's updated status reports.
The Dirge is as close to Zalgusa as I dare to risk bringing her, my lord,
she said, too weary to maintain the air of cultivated formality she always utilized whenever she had to address him, though she was still careful to keep her eyes averted from his unhelmed face.
Any more maneuvering on my part will only incite Captain Vandred further.
Thalac bared his filed teeth in a predatory grin, amused at being the cause of his brother's discomfort. Vandred's own warship, the Covenant of Blood, was now close enough to be descried beyond the starboard viewports by the naked human eye. The Night Lord raised his left hand. 3 serrated adamantine blades, each one painted a bright arterial crimson, slid soundlessly from the housings of his lightning claw gauntlet. Lesraitha's heart rate spiked, and the trembling of her hand grew even more pronounced.
"Does my dear brother Vandred command this vessel, then?"
Thalac asked quietly, as he casually turned the blood-red blades this way and that, carefully examining each razor-keen tine as if searching for some flaw or imperfection only he could see.
No, my lord. You are our master and commander. I live only to carry out your will.
Lesraitha fought and failed to keep her voice steady. Savoring the fear seeping from her every pore, the Night Lord leaned in closer, the servo joints of his Mark V warplate purring smoothly.
No.
The woman instinctively shrank back, her jaw tightening and her breathing quickening as she struggled to keep her composure. She was bold and strong-willed for a human, and it always pleased Thalac to remind her of her fragile mortality.
Of course.
"You are not going to live for much longer if you think the desires of my brothers should take precedence over my own,"
the legionary said with a soft hiss.
"The Abyssal Dirge will maintain stationary orbit at this anchorage, not because it is Vandred's will, but because it is mine."
Okay, yeah, sure.
I do hope you are able to understand the difference between the two, Shipmistress Lesraitha.
Dude, you're cutting me with all this edge, bruh. You are cutting me with the amount of edge that's in this right now. Like, unbelievable. Like, it is Night Lord. Like, the Night Lords are just so edgy.
I understand perfectly, Lord Captain.
She replied with forced calm through gritted teeth, her suppressed anger almost as delectable as her fear. Thalac rested the tips of his claws on her shoulder, enjoying the way she flinched beneath their touch.
Excellent. I am glad we are clear on the matter.
Ignoring the data slate she still held, he retracted the blades and strode to the end of the observation dais, overlooking the sunken multi-tiered command pit and the hundreds of human officers and chattering servitors who oversaw the Dirge's myriad internal functions. He had been looking forward to joining his brother captains in the Screaming Gallery at the heart of Kurz's dark fortress.
The Screaming Gallery.
Now the
You know, I really liked the Night Lords at one point, but God, they're so edgy sometimes it's hard to deal with.
anticipation of standing in the Primarch's presence had crumbled to ash. For although the battle barge's cargo holds fairly groaned with plunder and fresh slaves, Thalac knew his crusade spoils would mean little in the grand scheme of things if the Night Haunter's displeasure was great enough to see his gauntlets stained with the sinner's red. Behind him, the bridge's thick adamantium blast doors rumbled open. Power-armored footfalls rang heavily upon the deck. Thalac did not turn. Even without his helmet's auto-sensors, he recognized the two legionaries by their distinctive treads and the unique servo growls emitted by their warplate. Unlike him, they had arrived precisely on time.
You have served me well,
he said, addressing the mortal crewmen at their workstations below him.
Oh, they're
Their
dead.
bustling movements stilled, and their quiet talk ceased as they glanced up fearfully at the gene-forged
They're dead.
transhuman who had deigned to regard them from his lofty perch.
By your collective endeavors we have returned to Zagulsa, the splendid new homeworld of our glorious Legion. For this you have my thanks.
Bye.
I go now to attend upon the Lord Kurz. Talon Master Vath will command the ship in my absence. You will follow his every order as if it were my own. Do not be found wanting in his sight.
He left the Overlook before the stunned humans could formulate a response. Talon
They're
Master
dead.
Vath, the most decorated and respected of Thalac's senior officers, stood beside the command throne, his eviscerator chainsword planted upright on the deck before him. Under his direction, a cadre of the company's most skilled artificers had cunningly refashioned his Corvus pattern helm to resemble that of a snarling jackal's skull. Yet it often seemed to Thalac as if the skull was grinning at him instead. Flanking the Talon Master, menacing and magnificent in a polished ceremonial suit of Mark IV power armor worthy of any Imperial parade ground, his ornate bat-winged helm held in the crook of one arm, stood Teled Spacka, the 47th's undefeated champion and Thalac's strong right hand. The legionary's long black hair was tied back in a warrior's horsetail, and his most recently acquired trophy weapon, a master-crafted thunderhammer torn from the dying grasp of an Imperial Fist lieutenant, was mag-clamped across his power pack.
Azal, brother.
Spacka greeted him with a slight bow, his deceptively soft voice almost serene in its measured cadence.
Since when are you in the habit of giving spontaneous thank you speeches to the crew, Captain?
Vath asked with brazen familiarity, his amusement evident even through his Vox speakers.
Since our father sent me a missive an hour ago demanding a private audience as soon as we reached upper orbit.
So, once he thinks he's going to be dead, which he obviously does, all the edginess starts to seep away and he gets sentimental. I like him.
Thalac said, as he donned his old Mark III helmet.
You have overall command. If Captain Vandred starts whining about proximity margins again, tell him he should try moving his own shit junker of a ship for a change. In slightly more diplomatic terms, of course.
Of course.
Spacka alone shall accompany me to the surface. No other legionaries are to leave the dirge for any reason unless directly summoned by the Primarch. By your will, Captain.
The Talon Master clashed an armored fist against his chestplate in acknowledgement. Yes, the jackal's skull was indeed grinning.
Come, Talid,
Thalac said as he stalked impatiently from the bridge, his champion following at his heels.
We have kept Kurz waiting long enough.
Kurz has been talking to his dad in the form of a meat puppet. Probably.
Upon the barren, dust-swept surface of dead Zagulsa, there was but one solitary bastion capable of sustaining human life. And from the depths of its deepest dungeons to the pinnacles of its highest towers, anarchy, pain, and the corrosive madness of a broken demigod held uncontested sway over all. As Thalac and Spacka ventured deeper into their father's stronghold, striding down long corpse-hung corridors that wept blood from black stone, and traversing vast excruciation chambers where captives and condemned slaves writhed and shrieked upon the skinning racks in their hundreds.
Yay.
The eyes of the gathered Night Lords silently tracked their passing from the shadows, the crimson lenses of their skull-faced helms glowing like smoldering embers in the fathomless gloom. No one challenged them or denied them ingress. The bleak despondency Thalac had sensed while in orbit hung over the Legion's commanders like a suffocating death shroud, and his unease increased as they drew closer to Kurz's throne room.
My, what a heartwarming homecoming this is turning out to be.
You're from
Spacka
Nocturne.
observed with dripping sarcasm. The champion had donned
You're from Nostromo. The last time you had a homecoming, you blew up your planet. I think it's just a bit too much to ask for happy homecomings.
his own helm and spoke over an encrypted Vox channel only he and Thalac shared. He walked alongside his captain with a contemptuous swagger, the thunder hammer now held loosely in his left fist, wordlessly daring any of the watching Night Lords to challenge their passage.
Our brothers are waiting for something,
Thalac said, feeling the strain of expectation beginning to coil in the pit of his stomach.
Perhaps the Primarch intends to make an example out of us.
His muscles tensed involuntarily, the humiliating prospect of a public chastisement causing the unwelcome visions of red-stained gauntlets to grow more vivid in his mind's eye.
Chastisement? No.
You lingered, Azal.
Spacka reminded him without rancor.
Not that I regret our actions. However, I do not believe our brother's anticipation has anything to do with the consequences of our belated return.
The Night Lord turned his head sharply to regard a squad of raptors loitering near the entrance to an armory.
Besides, you are not that unpopular, brother. At least not yet.
There we go.
Thalac could not deny the champion's observation, especially as Spacka was quite correct on the last point. Just when it seemed the two legionaries would reach the screaming gallery without eliciting a confrontation, an enormous, heavily armored man-shape divorced itself from the shadows and stepped across their path. Thalac and Spacka came to an immediate halt. The name engraved in elegant Nostroman script across the venerable warrior's chestplate was familiar to Thalac. Though the last time the two of them had stood together in the same room, the legionary had been alive and pointing a blade at him in anger. Some things never changed.
Huh.
You are late.
Captain Core Mass boomed in outrage from the Vox amplifiers of a Contemptor dreadnought chassis, whose every available surface had been decorated with the flayed skins of aliens, humans, and space marines alike.
And you have gained an appalling amount of weight.
Thalac said acidly, refusing to be intimidated by his longtime rival. With a mechanical roar, Core Mass gunned the motor of a monstrous chain fist and brandished the brutal weapon at the two Night Lords in open challenge.
Stand down, Telid.
Thalac voxed urgently to Spacka.
Do not confront him. This is a fight you cannot hope to win. How would you know? I have not yet faced a dreadnought in mortal combat,
Spacka said, his voice thick with frustrated battle lust.
He must answer for his arrogance, and I wield the perfect weapon that shall see him brought to his knees and humbled. Stand down, or I will piss all over your steaming remains after he has finished rendering you down to your base elements. We do not have time for this. The Primarch is waiting. Tell that to him!
Snarled Spacka, as the walking gun casket Core Mass inhabited took a threatening step towards them, the teeth of its chain fist a shrieking blur, and its twin-linked las cannons aimed in their direction.
Insolent whoreson!
The enraged dreadnought bellowed.
We all gathered before our father's throne to heed his words as true and loyal sons should. All except you. So
We're here now, asshole. Can you calm down?
what were you doing, Thalac? Ambushing crippled Astarte strike cruisers out in the void? Tossing wailing children into skinning pits? What could have possibly taken a greater precedent over our father's will? I will garland myself with your entrails after I've made you beg for death. You and your pathetic headhunter.
Brother Captain Core Mass, you do not have the right to challenge me until the Night Haunter himself has passed judgment upon my deeds.
Thalac said with icy calm, mindful to keep his hand away from his holstered Volkite Serpenter as he spoke. His unwavering gaze met the cluster of sensor nodes and picked feeds built into the Contemptor's recessed helm.
Curse has summoned me to an audience. My life, or my death, is for him alone to decide. Now get your oversized ass the hell out of my way. The Primarch must not be kept waiting.
There was a long moment of silence from the interred Night Lord. Then the whirring chain fist powered down, and the dreadnought retreated back into the shifting shadows, his Vox voice dropping to a low, bemused rumble.
That must mean you do not know that he has yet to tell you. Ah, how delightful. But you are heading in the wrong direction. Our father no longer holds court in the Screaming Gallery. He lurks now within the high chamber of his topmost tower.
Yay.
Perhaps he will forgive you. Or perhaps he will rip out your hearts. It matters little either way. Vindication draws near, and we are forbidden from turning her blade aside.
Refusing to allow the Dreadnought's cryptic ramblings to gain a foothold on his already anxious mind, Thalac backtracked for a quarter of a mile before turning left down a dark, unlit passageway whose walls were lined with thousands of silently screaming skulls.
Kurz wasn't exactly in the best mental state coming up here, so everybody be ready, because we're going to get to see Kurz, I'm pretty sure. And Kurz is about nuttier than squirrel shit at this point, so yay!
A seething Spacka stalked after him, his lightning claws and thunder hammer still unbloodied.
I am coming, father.
Thalac swore aloud within the confines of his helm as he began to ascend.
And if it is your will, neither I nor Spacka will ever leave your side again.
The corridor leading to the topmost chamber was paved with a macabre mosaic of human teeth, and it ended before a single arched doorway. Thalac's skin prickled, and his lips drew back from his teeth as his unease warred with the innate gene-bred desire to hasten to his father's side. The two Night Lords halted before a heavy door wrought of molecularly bonded bone. Curs laired within, waiting. No legionary stood sentinel outside his sanctum, not even a pair of the Atramentar Terminator elite. The Primarch had completely isolated himself. Stealing his hearts, Thalac faced Spacka and placed a gauntlet on his pauldron.
Will you stand alongside Talon Master Vath and champion his leadership, Telid?
You do not need to ask. It would not come to that, Spacka said softly.
There is no time for sentimentality, brother. The warriors of the 47th will require a firm and resolute commander to lead them in the crusades to come. Vath is the most suitable candidate. Will you support him?
It will not come to that.
Vath is my chosen successor. Stand by him. Promise me this, Telid, if our friendship means anything to you.
You bastard. Anger tainted the champion's words. Yes, damn you. You have my promise. I will support Vath. Thalac removed his helmet and maglocked it at his side, then pushed against the door. It swung smoothly open on silent hinges before fetching up against something soft and wet. The legionary entered the Night Haunter's lightless sanctum alone. Despite the frigid air, a slaughterhouse reek still permeated the bare, unfurnished room. Thalac's enhanced vision briefly marked the freshly dismembered corpses piled haphazardly about in the corners before his eyes settled upon the singular being occupying the center of the chamber. The Primarch, Conrad Kurz, stood in front of a stone lectern, naked save for a tattered cloak of black feathers. A thick book bound in human skin lay open before him, and the scratching of his quill was akin to the scrabbling of rats' feet. It had been years since Thalac had last beheld his progenitor in the flesh. The decades following the War Master's defeat had been unkind to him, and his condition had gradually deteriorated until he was but a gaunt shell of his former self. Dried blood coated his hands, arms, and mouth, and his tangled hair fell in a filthy curtain about his pallid face. None of this mattered to Thalac. Without hesitation, he went down on one knee and saluted the Dominus Nox.
I am writing my autobiography,
the Primarch said without looking up.
It is almost finished. No one should ever read it.
Thalac remained silent, anticipating Kurz's rebuke.
You lingered,
the Night Haunter hissed. A sudden spasm jolted his body, and he set aside his quill.
I summoned you, and you lingered. I await your judgment, Father.
Thalac said. He bowed his head.
My judgment? No. I have no more judgments to pass upon this accursed galaxy, my son. The time for judgment has ended. The time for vindication comes.
Yep.
I am going to die.
Thalac's heart convulsed within his chest. The world stopped turning beneath his feet. He stared at Kurz in stark disbelief.
No. Yes.
The Primarch grinned, a hideous expression completely bereft of warmth or mirth.
And here's the thing, okay? Here's something to just let stew in your noggin a little bit. Kurz's Legion, at this point, with as much infighting as is going on right now, was still more intact than the Death Guard. Let that sink in.
My father's assassin draws near. Her ship has already entered the eastern fringe. She is coming for me, as I have long foreseen. No.
Thalac said again as he stood, fighting against the nameless dread threatening to swallow him.
I will stop her. I will kill her. I will gift you her head. I have named Talonmaster Sho Zahal as my heir, since Sevatar is lost to me.
Kurz continued, as if he had not spoken.
He will lead the 8th after I am gone. My legionaries will war across the stars in an endless struggle for vengeance, their claws forever red with the lifeblood of my father's failed empire until the darkness claims them all, one by one. This is madness.
Thalac snarled, regaining some of his fortitude. Kurz cocked his head, as if perplexed by his anger.
We are your sons, father. We would never allow such a fate to befall you. This assassin you speak of will not come within a...
The attack was as swift as it was unexpected.
Bye-bye.
Thalac did not even see the Primarch move. Between the space of one heartbeat and the next, he was torn from his feet and flung across the room in a single motion to land atop a slick mound of mangled corpse parts. Before the Night Lord could regain his footing, Kurz appeared before him as if spewed forth from the very shadows. His rotting teeth bared, his eyes glittering obsidian pits, utterly devoid of all sanity and hope. The Primarch's nimble fingers were curled about the hilt of the Legionary's long combat knife. Thalac could not even guess how he had taken it.
I will be vindicated,
Kurz said, expelling a waft of fetid breath so foul it made the Astartes want to vomit.
Oh, wow.
I have extracted an oath from every one of my captains to that effect. Each has sworn to me neither they nor their men will raise a hand against the assassin. She shall remain unopposed until the deed is done. You are the last Legion commander to return to Zagul, sir. I will hear your oath now. How can you do this to us?
Thalac roared as the Night Haunter leaned over him.
We have all answered your summons. The 8th has mustered in full. Let us leave this world together and forge a new path. Let the assassin hunt in vain amid the blood and carnage of our wake. Take us back to Terra, or into the Eye itself. Declare a new crusade, Father. Let the galaxy scream. You do not have to die here to prove some.
With an animalistic howl, Kurz seized him by the throat and held him aloft. White, hot pain blossomed as the Primarch punched him, once in the groin, thrice in the gut. The combat knife gripped in his fist like a punch dagger.
There's a lot of things that I would rather never happen. But getting punched to the dick by a Primarch has gotta be one of the... No, just no.
Layers of powered ceramite did nothing to stop the blade from ripping in and out of him faster than his mind could register the damage. Then he was airborne once more. Something vital tore deep inside as he struck the blood-stained floor. Kurz pounced on him before he could rise.
My fate cannot be altered.
The Night Haunter screamed as he wrenched Thalac upright, manhandling him as easily if he were immortal.
Swear Swear to me you will not interfere. Swear or be left to rot in the dungeons forevermore. I will not stand idly by while you allow some damn bitch to...
He got no further.
Bye.
Kurz lifted him and ran him straight across the chamber. There was just enough time to realize what was about to happen, but not enough to stop it. Kurz himself pulled the blow at the last second. Thalac's reinforced skull met the far wall with a sickening crack. Kurz dropped him in an armored heap. He blacked out, only to regain consciousness a few seconds later. Blood was in his hair, and a veil of crimson clouded his vision. He thought he saw Kurz towering above him, the knife poised to cut his throat. He blinked uncertainly, and then it was Spacka standing over him, crackling energies coiling about the head of his raised thunderhammer.
Do not kill my captain, father.
The champion's voice was as cold as a frozen grave.
Why?
The Primarch asked, pacing closer.
I have found him wanting. He is unworthy of your fealty.
Because he defies you out of loyalty, Spacka said. He is true to you. And because he is my friend. He is my only friend. Thalac grimaced inwardly at the legionary's naked honesty and dragged himself into a kneeling position. His entire skull felt as if it was on the verge of coming apart.
Yeah, you got some brain damage there.
So,
Kurz ran a dark tongue across his thin lips.
ah, what a pity. There is so little trust to be found in friendship. I once counted Fulgrim as a friend, before he betrayed my confidence to Dawn at Charot. Tell me, is your brother worth dying for? Is he worth suffering for? Is he truly worthy of such selfless devotion?
In answer, Spacka extended the red blades of the Lightning Claw gauntlet affixed to his right hand.
Oh boy.
They were identical in every way to those Thalac wielded with his left, for the gauntlets were a matched pair, intended for a single warrior. Kurz misinterpreted the gesture.
You have more spine than the rest of my captains combined.
A fell light kindled in the mad Primarch's eyes. To Thalac's horror, he dropped into a feral crouch, bringing his throat level with the champion's claws. Smiling, he spread his arms wide and tilted back his head invitingly.
Save your captain, then. Do what the Emperor should have done the night he first embraced me. Do what Sanguinius and the Lion would not. Change my fate. Prove the vision false. Kill me yourself.
Spacka trembled, overcome by dread and uncertainty. The red blades reached forwards, their tips pricked the Primarch's alabaster skin. Kurz closed his eyes. Thalac bit back a scream. The whole universe seemed to hold its breath. No. No. Spacka stepped back, his limbs visibly shaking. The lightning claws retracted back into their housings. The thunderhammer crashed to the floor. Spacka sank to his knees beside Thalac. I cannot. You are still our father, even if that no longer means anything to you.
I have killed many things. I would not number my Gene-sire among them.
The Night Haunter rose once more to his full height, drawing his feathered cloak about him like a pair of ragged wings, and a measure of his former majesty returned.
My father, my brothers, and now my sons, all have failed me. Now you see my fate is fixed. Vindication is mine.
The Primarch glared down at the stricken legionaries kneeling at his feet and pointed towards the door with the bloodied combat knife.
Depart from me, Captain Thalac. Take what remains of the 47th and depart. Do not return. The darkness waits for you. Darkness and an eternity of slaughter and death. Consider this my last command. No. Consider it my last wish.
Father! Thalac cried out in abject despair, unable to resist as Spacka gripped his power back and began dragging him from the chamber.
Father! Do not leave us! Do not forsake your sons! Go. You will not give me your oath. You are no longer my son.
Oh.
Thalac's mind fell into a bottomless abyss. Incomprehensible words of denial spilled from his blood-flecked lips. His vision dimmed, and he thrashed and clawed at Spacka's armor like a witless beast as the champion hauled him out into the corridor. The door was shut. An anguished scream tore free of his throat. Spacka cursed and drove a fist into his face, causing him to lose consciousness a second time. When awareness returned, he found himself being carried across his brother's shoulders back through the fortress. Spacka had reattached his helm, and screeds of injury and trauma data were scrolling across the visor display. The wounds Kurz had inflicted upon him were severe. Thalac was beyond caring.
Who am I, tell it?
He whispered numbly.
Who am I, if I am not his son?
You are Azal Thalac of the Red Knives, commander of the 47th, Spacka said, his warplate servos squealing in protest beneath Thalac's additional weight. You stand in midnight clad, and you are my friend. These truths have not changed, brother.
Kurz cannot do this.
Thalac gasped.
The power vacuum alone, it will tear our brotherhood apart. The Legion will disintegrate. Sure, Sahar does not have the strength of will to keep the Night Lords united.
That is not our concern. We have our orders. The Primarch has spared you for a purpose. We will avenge him together. We will ensure the Imperium never forgets his name. Our blades will be painted red for all eternity.
Tell it, brother. When we get back to the Abyssal Dirge, I'm going to break out some casks of that leftover Fenrisian mjord and drink myself into oblivion. Will you join me?
Azal, the last time I drank mjord with you, I woke up with a headache so debilitating I nearly threw myself out of an airlock. I was also wearing Vath's armor for some reason.
My head already hurts.
No shit. You should have left your helmet on.
My hearts feel like they are dying.
So do mine. Our pain shall fuel our vengeance. We will cut and kill everything that stands in our path until there is nothing left for us to cut or to kill. Are you with me, brother captain?
Like when we were boys.
Thalac murmured, clotting blood dribbling from his lips.
Yes, I am with you. Thank you, Telly.
For what?
For defending me.
I am your champion, Azal. I will always defend you. The blackness claimed Thalac again, and he knew no more as Spacka bore him away into a shared exile and the eternal darkness of a grim and fatherless future.
So, I got out of Kurz what I kind of expected to get. Kurz was well and truly past the deep end on Seguelsa. His hallucinations had... He was starting to have a lot more hallucinations as he started to get closer and closer to the time of his death. His mental state completely failed. By the time... This was before the Primarch book, I do believe. Well, it's obvious it was before the Primarch book. Kurz hadn't completely and totally debilitated as of yet. He was, in this story, still mostly himself. But his trip from the pod that he got picked up in after Sanguinius jettisoned him in a pod to Seguelsa was different. Warpugs, Conrad Kurz is just one of those Primarchs who is a tragic figure. Most of the Trader Primarchs are tragic figures. Kurz, who was completely debilitated by visions of the future that he felt like he couldn't change. Angron, who was screwed from the start. He was just completely messed over from the start. Magnus, who was too arrogant to see what he should be doing, instead basically did everything wrong and crippled the Imperium when he was still a loyal son. The only ones that aren't really tragic figures are Horus himself, Mortorian, Lorgar, and I hate to say it, but Fulgrim. But the sheer fact of the matter is that Conrad Kurz is one of my favorite Primarchs, even though the Night Lords are not one of my favorite legions. And the reason behind that is because he's such a unique character. He hated his kids. He hated them. But at the same time, he just didn't. He never cared enough to be a Primarch. He just didn't. He was just out there doing things for the hell of it, pretty much. Because he was being allowed to. Warpugs. Todd Townsend, he writes Night Lords very, very well. The Legion itself is edgy past the point of ridiculousness. They're just, like, so unrelentingly grim. And they're sadistic to the extreme. So, am I surprised that they got a fight pick with them on the way to see Kurz? No. Would I have been surprised if they had more than one fight pick with them? No. Aside from the World Eaters, I can't picture a Legion that would be less prone to... Yeah. Warpugs. That was good. I got a feeling there's going to be more to come. Until then, though, Warpugs, like and subscribe if you haven't already. Leave a comment down below. And I'll catch you guys next time.